Well, happy Aloha Friday. Thanks so much for joining us here on Spotlight Hawaii. I'm Ryan Kalesuchi, joined by Yanji Denise. And today, Yanji, we have a very special guest joining us here on the show.
That's absolutely right, Ryan. We have the chair of the Honolulu Police Commission, Shannon Alivado, joining us. Thank you so much for being here today. You know, your timing, we book these fairly far out, but your timing is really spot on. We wanted to start, of course, with what happened yesterday at the council, the appearance from Larry Ignis, who was the mayor's nominee to join you as a colleague there on the commission. We got news this morning that he has withdrawn his nomination, but I wanted to get your reaction to the conversation that was had and the broader point just about racial discrimination and the points that Councilwoman Esther Kia'aina brought up.
Yes, Yunji, I was able to watch a clip of the hearing that took place on Wednesday. And first of all, I just want to recognize that Mr. Ignis's willingness to serve on the police commission is something that should be recognized. And I just, you know, I'm open to the fact that he was willing to be considered because it is a big undertaking. However, with the news of his recent withdrawal, I think it's timely due to the conversation about, you know, whether racism exists in Honolulu or in the state of Hawaii. And I think to Council Member Kia'aina's point was not something that she wanted to you know, entrap him with or anything. It was just a straightforward question. And I think the response that Mr. Ignis provided was somewhat alarming and concerning because we can say that maybe from his perspective it didn't exist, but with respect to racism in Honolulu, I think there's no doubt that our community does have racism. It exists, that should be recognized. And I think the conversation about racism in Honolulu is important because without recognizing our past, we can't move forward and address the shortcomings that our community does face.
You know, HPD has been in the news a lot recently with just the things that are happening around town, but also with the search for a new police chief to take the place of Chief Susan Ballard. If you can explain to us how that process is going, what that looks like right now, and where you guys are at as a commission in this process of selecting who will be the leader and take over at HPD.
Yes, Ryan. So the vacancy for the chief position has been out since June 1. And we welcome all qualified candidates to apply to the chief position. As stated on our website, it indicates not only the minimum qualifications, but also some characteristics that we would like to see in the next chief of police, including the highest degree of personal and professional integrity, moral character and personal stability, excellent leadership and communication skills, and an ability to interact effectively with the community. I think we've seen a lot and heard a lot from not only those that join us in our public hearings, but also from the community at large. That communication, outreach to these affected communities that appear to be disproportionately impacted is important. So those are just some of the qualities. And to that, the closing date for the application or vacancy will be June 30th. So we ask those interested candidates to contact our office. I don't think it's not enough in the news with respect to the vacancy, and we just hope the best candidates come forward.
We're having a little bit of issues with your audio here. I hope that is temporary and can be overcome, but if not, we'll address that in just a minute. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're looking for in terms of the qualities of the chief. Are you hoping to have this person come from within the department?
Yunji, that's too premature to say that we would only want a candidate within the department. Our search is far and wide. We are outreaching not only locally, but on the national level, ensuring that any candidate that is interested in coming to Honolulu to apply to be our next chief of police is not only an innovative leader, but one with leadership skills that understands Honolulu's different cultures, different intricacies, and the fact that the department employs over 2,000 personnel, not only civilian, but sworn officers. So it's a big charge that would be expected of this candidate. So those are just some of the qualities that the commission is looking for. But I don't think we should focus on what the commission is looking for. What we do plan to do is bring in a consultant that will assist us in reaching out not only to the law enforcement community as to what they expect, but also to the public, nonprofit providers, just to hear from them what the expectations of the community is for this next chief of police.
You know, there seems to be some concern about the transparency of, Chief Ballard and the way that some of the way in which information was communicated by the department in the recent years and recent events that have really made headlines. What are your thoughts on how transparent that role should be? Is that going to be a part of that interviewing process when you are selecting somebody? How important is the overall transparency of the department to the commission?
Yeah, Ryan, you mentioned Chief Ballard, and because she just retired on June 1, I just want to take this opportunity to thank her for her over 35 years of service. But as you do point out, towards the end of her tenure, there were issues with respect to transparency. And in her last review, we brought those issues up, asking about how it can be improved, what plans she may have to bring forth some transparency issues that may be coming up. So with respect to how we look at this next candidate and what we will be looking for, we will definitely put that as a high priority. Communication, both internally and externally, not only ensures that the public is informed and has the information it needs and the trust in the department, but also internally for the department personnel, so they know from the leadership what is expected of them. And I think that's going to be front and center when this new candidate comes forward, or the candidates that will be considered.
You know, on the issue of transparency, one of the issues that has come up recently is this idea of body cam footage, that a lot of Honolulu police officers are obviously wearing those body cameras when they interact with the public, but it's the chief's discretion as to what actually gets released to the public. What are your thoughts on body cam footage and how much of it should be available?
Yeah, Yunji, body-worn camera footage has been very helpful, not only to the commissioners who take in citizen complaints, but also I think to the officers, because from the officers' perspective, they're seeing firsthand how they're responding to an incident, right? And that always helps with not only their report writing, but also accountability. So with respect to the broader launch of body-worn cameras, because as you know, right now it is focusing on patrol units and also traffic division. So if that program could be more broad set across the department, I think it would bring more certainty to the public as to not only accountability, but access to what may have occurred in those incidents. But only just at our last meeting on Wednesday, this issue has come up, because the question was whether or not the department would want legislation to be impacting what their policy is, or whether they will be taking the initiative to look at some of the best practices, not only here locally, but also across our nation. What has worked, right? What kind of policies have other jurisdictions put in place where the community feels confident about how they're released in a consistent manner?
What does the timeline look like right now for the selection of this new chief? We know that this is sort of the early goings of the process, but if you can lay that out about when you think you will be able to make a decision and what that timeline looks like.
Yes, Ryan, we're still going through the details of the timeline, and we actually have a draft going. What the commission has to work off of is the past selection of a chief. And in the past, it's taken anywhere from 4 to 6 months, sometimes longer. So what this commission would like to do is not only make the process efficient, but timely. So we're looking and hoping that we can accomplish this within 4 to 6 months. So before the end of the year, we hope to have a chief in place, sworn in, and ready to lead the department.
When Chief Ballard did retire, and made that decision public, she said that she felt that the commission had lost confidence in her. I know that, we want to respect her decision to leave, but I would like to know, what are some of the concerns that you had with the job she did, and how does that impact when you're interviewing people going forward?
Yes, Yunji, as you know, as Chief's review, we did provide a performance improvement plan that focused on mainly 3 areas. They were communication, management, and leadership. And those are the 3 areas we had asked if she could improve. Definitely, because not only were we seeing the overtime issues, but the communication, as you earlier pointed out, was on a downfall. So those are the areas that not only we asked Chief if she could improve on, we gave her a plan that we were hoping she could execute on, but also for the next chief or the next chief candidates, they should be aware that those 3 areas are important. It's not as though, Chief Ballard wasn't aware of those areas, because those are actually part of the evaluation in and of itself. So those are not things that she may not have been aware of.
I think this would be a good opportunity for the public, because a lot of people maybe know a little of what the commission does. If you can go into a little more detail of what the role of your members and your role serving as the head of this commission, what you do. Of course, we know that you are involved, obviously, in the selection of this police chief, but beyond that process and the reviews of the police chief, what other matters do you take over into consideration, and what are things that the police commission is essentially in charge of?
The police commission is made up of 7 volunteer members. Currently, we have 6. We have 1 vacancy. The charge of the commission is pursuant to the revised ordinances of Honolulu. And basically, we have the ability to fire, hire, and discipline the chief of police, review their budget, review all policies and rulemaking, and also look at citizen complaints, as mentioned earlier. So if there's a citizen that has an issue with respect to an officer's behavior in the public, they would bring it forth to the police commission, and an independent investigator employed by the police commission conducts that investigation. So I don't think the public understands. They almost see the police commission as an attached to the department, but it is separate and apart from the department. We have our own staff. We have an office downtown that's accessible to the public during all open hours of the city and county of Honolulu. And with respect to our charge currently, whenever there's a vacancy in the chief of police position, that's something that the commission would undertake. And that's what we're doing going forward in the next few months.
Going back to the points that were raised by Councilwoman Kia Aina yesterday in that hearing that we saw at the council, I wonder what your perspective is and what kind of complaints the commission has gotten when it does come to racial discrimination and perhaps some uneven enforcement of different minority groups. What are some ways that you think the department could improve in these areas, and what are the things that you're hearing from the community?
Yes. There's always room for improvement. And I think if you talk to any HPD personnel, mainly Acting Chief Vanek, he'll recognize that there's always room for improvement. With respect to racial bias, we do see some of those complaints come through. I want to, in my recollection, when we had the enforcement of the emergency rules with respect to COVID, there was some complaints that I remember coming through that folks felt like maybe they were being targeted because they were not be wearing a mask, or they were in parks when they were not supposed to be taking that up. But what is important, I think, is before officers are even out interacting with the public, they have to understand in their training at the academy how they need to approach community. And I think that's something that not only this acting chief is focusing on, but also the department personnel, of recognizing how community sensitivity is front and center in our everyday interactions, more so now, because we have accountability to its nth degree. We have cell phones that can record every action of not only an officer, but members of the public. So I mean, this conversation is not going to go away, and I hope it doesn't, because it's an important one to have. And the commission, as these issues come up, are addressing them and have the ability to sustain any complaints that come before the commission, or decline to uphold any of these complaints. So that's the role the commission plays with respect to interacting with the public as well. But I guess I should add that the commission has the ability to approve legal counsel for officers who are sued in their official capacity. So that's another charge that the commission is responsible for.
You mentioned some of the issues that have happened because of COVID-19. You touched upon the overtime issues that also were addressed. How moving forward, what is the commission doing to ensure that those matters are settled and to make sure that those types of things and those individuals are held accountable moving forward to help the overall morale and just the transparency of the department as a whole?
I want to take this opportunity to just recognize the other commission members. We have a very diverse group on the commission right now. And just recently, they formed a permitted interaction group, and its focus was on the budget. And to my recollection, while serving, we've never formed a permitted interaction group. And this one, with the focus on the budget, was very timely because of the issues with respect to spending on COVID. So I just want to recognize that our commission members are going over and beyond with respect to the work they're trying and the contributions they're making in trying to assist the department in moving forward. Another example is our work with the use of force amendments to the policy. As you know, the incident on the continent was impactful to our own Honolulu Police Department, and the department took it upon itself to correct some of its use of force policy. A member of our commission actually sat on that body that looked over the amendments. And the issue with respect to transparency is coming more to light because, as you know, if anybody is interested in looking at the HPD policies, they're all online, and a lot of it is unredacted, meaning the public has full access as to what guidelines the police department and officers must follow on a daily basis. So I wanna just congratulate the department for taking those steps. Of course, more improvement is always necessary, and the commission is fully aware of that, and we want to make sure that the department can move forward. And I think it starts with the leadership. So we're looking forward to, identifying that new leader and moving forward.
There have been a number of officer-involved incidents in the last few months. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on, not on the incidents themselves, but on what seems to be an increase in these interactions.
Yes, it's interesting because in looking at the statistics of the 2020 officer-involved shooting for Honolulu, we're looking at 4 that occurred. We're now in 2021 and we're seeing 3. So that is alarming. The fact that these incidents are occurring where officers are having to face, citizens where they're resisting is very concerning. But it is something that the commission continues to ask the department about, not only with disclosure of body-worn camera footage, but also on policy and training. Because as mentioned before, the training of our officers is so important in ensuring that they can respond to any incident on a case-by-case basis. These incidents are unique and in and of themselves can be very scary at times. So that's something the commission looks forward to working on as well.
I had the opportunity to speak with a police officer who had been in the force for many years now, and he just expressed the overall concern on their end of how difficult it is to do their job now with so much scrutiny now. And there are many people who are at the point where they can retire, and there are a large number, he says, of those who serve within the department who are looking to get out once they have the opportunity to retire, which could drastically impact just the overall police officers on the street, he says, and recruitment continues to be something that they work on. Mm-hmm. Is that concerning at all to you to hear that there are many officers who are just kind of over it and then they're ready to get over it, they're ready to retire and move on, and knowing that recruitment could be an issue moving forward?
Extremely worrisome, Ryan. And that's some of the feedback we've been hearing as well from officers. And I think that's why it's so important to understand and appreciate an officer's job on a daily basis and what they do for our community. Unfortunately, a lot of the coverage is negative, but there are positive stories out there where they make impact on a daily basis. And I think some of those stories should be highlighted a little more, not only in the media, but within our own communities. And I know there's so many out there that support officers, but at the same time, we need to ensure they're held accountable. So with respect to the vacancies, it's something the commission has continued to ask the leadership about, how to improve that. As you mentioned, there's about over 290 is the current vacancy. So that's an issue that already Chief Vanek informed the commission on Wednesday that he's going to be focusing on, because with only 4 recruit classes coming in every year and an average of maybe 40 to 45 actually making it out of the academy, we can always work harder. And there's always ways in which we can try to increase recruitment and actually make it more something that our community would like to come forth and do as a profession.
You know, we had Anton Krucky on here a while back. He is the head of the Office of Housing for the City and County of Honolulu. And one of the things that he was talking about is how the city is working to stand up a force, if you will, that would respond to homeless individuals that are in need of help, sort of diversifying the assistance that's out there so that police officers aren't the only ones who are responding, and EMS is not the only one who is responding to some of our chronically homeless folks who really are in need perhaps of more social services than law enforcement. What are your thoughts on that? We know that departments on the mainland have done this in varying degrees to kind of take some of these responsibilities out of the hands of officers and give them to other sectors of the community.
That conversation has been ongoing as well, Yoonji. As you know, the police department has overextended itself in the social services area. Examples include Post and Honu, not only during the pandemic, but also pre-pandemic. They stood up a residential production for homeless individuals. And I think more of that is something not only that the department needs to do, but our state and county partners. So it's enlightening to hear Mr. Krucky initiating this. And I don't think we're short of examples of how successful it's been in other jurisdictions. We've heard about Seattle, we've heard about Colorado. And the question is, how do we implement it? How do we incorporate it within our current department and have not only the providers maybe potentially side by side with officers, or potentially being the first responders and not being able to feel that restraint or hesitation in responding to these sometimes very dramatic events, sometimes scary events. So how do we find that balance of working with the police, community, providers, and also just getting these individuals help? I think that's what it comes down to, getting these people help that they need to not only get out of their rut or just move on with their lives and in becoming, contributing citizens.
Another issue or our topic, I should say, that has made headlines has, of course, been former Chief Kealoha and the trial that he has gone through with his wife, Catherine. I wanted to get your thoughts on overall how that entire situation and that investigation and what that has done to the department, how that continues to impact the department till today, and what are some of the things that the police commission has maybe done or is doing to ensure that that type of situation doesn't happen again?
The choice of the chief of police is a very important one. As we've seen with former Chief Kealoha, the choice was not a right one. And it unfortunately came to light in a situation that has just pretty much devastated the department. It took a lot for the department to move forward after his administration. And with the appointment of Chief Ballard, it was a bright light. It was an opportunity for her to showcase how important the police department takes its job, how serious it is about serving the community. But I think in light of that former administration, Kealoha's administration, the commission has an even more important charge of ensuring that our process of screening the candidate is thorough. The background checks with respect to past practices is important. We do have an element of the psychologist who will do another analysis on top of that of the candidate. And all through these processes and through these checks that we hope will be encased in the process of the selection of the chief, we hope that the best candidate will step forward. But I think what needs to be highlighted is the input that we want to receive from the community. And through our consultant, we have asked for them to come up with a way to get feedback from the community as to what the expectation of the chiefs are, what are some areas that we should, look into with respect to candidates. So all of these factors are still a work in progress, Ryan and Yunji, and not only will we have more details in July, but I think going forward, there's more information that will come forward as well.
Can I just follow up on that? And you'll have to forgive me, but this layer, this added psychologist component, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I learned about it too, and we actually had a recent discussion in our commission meeting as to why that may be necessary. I think one of the commissioners said, is that really a necessity? But in learning from past commissions and past practices in other jurisdictions, they have the psychologists do an analysis of the candidate and putting them in different scenarios, whether it's responding to an officer-involved shooting, whether it's responding to an MH1 incident, including involving mental health. So these are scenarios that can be recreated through the psychologist's analysis and presented to the commission in a way of expressing how they feel that the candidate would respond in certain situations.
Our time here is almost done, but we did want to provide an opportunity for you to just share with the public as we move forward with this search for the new chief, and as you continue to deal with what seems like more mounting issues that seem to be coming out from HPD itself. What is your message to the public during this time when there is a lot of uncertainty and really this search for a leader continues on?
I want to thank the public for continuing to dialogue, not only with our police department, not only with the department leadership, but also with us, the commission. We've been getting a lot of activity and just interest in our commission meetings, which are held usually the first and third Wednesday of every month. This month, we're holding it on June 23rd, our second meeting due to conflicts. But just thank you for the community's feedback, because I think with the dialogue and the continued feedback that we get, we're able to relay those concerns and expressed interest to the department. And that's what the commission was actually started for. Laymen, people from the community providing input to the department on how they can improve, where they're doing, highlighting where they're doing well, but mainly just to be a voice of the community. And I think that's what I wanted to highlight as we go through the chief selection process. Please be patient. This is not something we want to rush, but ensure that the best candidate is moving forward, that we're doing everything correctly, and that this is a process that the community and everyone trusts, because that's what we need to do, is bring forth the best leader to ensure that the public and the community is safe within Honolulu.
Okay, well, Shannon Alivado, Chair of the Honolulu Police Commission, we do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for answering so many questions, and we thank you also for the work that you do.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you. And a reminder to the public that, those of you watching, these are volunteer positions. These folks give a tremendous amount of time meeting publicly twice a month. But then, of course, there's tons of work that goes on behind the scenes. And they have a tremendous responsibility now for all the reasons, Ryan, that we outlined in those questions, just that there are so many areas of concern, be it officers-involved incidents, these body camera footage issues, and then, of course, all the issues that were raised at yesterday's council meeting with that commissioner who was nominated and has now withdrawn.
And of course, the biggest responsibility, which is presented in front of them now, finding who will lead this new department. As you said here, she's asking for patience, that they are not going to rush through this process by any means, that they want to make sure that they find the best candidate who also understands the importance of transparency. She would noted earlier that was one of the issues that happened with Chief Ballard, and that there was a lack of transparency toward the end of her time as police chief. And so they're looking for somebody that can really help to communicate with the commission, with the public, with the mayor's office and the administration, but also that it doesn't necessarily have to be from someone that's currently within the department.
Yeah, that is significant. They are doing a wide search with some help. And I thought that addition of the psychologist evaluation, that was something that was news to me, and is an interesting idea to include that in the selection process. So obviously something that we'll be following. And she did say that at the end of the month, they will be asking for a lot more public input. So stay tuned for that. On Monday, of course, we start out with the governor, and we have so much to talk to him about, all these tourists coming back and the interactions that we're seeing there. And also we saw there was a question about unemployment benefits. One of the things we want to ask him is, does he plan to continue to get the federal help, that $300 plus up? We know that governors across the country have started to shut those down to try to push people back to the workforce. So we'll be asking him about that.
Yeah, a lot of things coming up. I expect also some news from the Department of Health at some point today, if not over the weekend and into next week. That could also impact the tier system and also travel to and from Hawaii. So looking forward to continue to stay updated with the governor on Monday to follow up on some of those breaking news that will likely happen today or over the weekend. And then we continue out with some great conversation and guests lined up for the rest of the month. So we thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and of this show. Continue to stay posted here. Continue to comment and share this profile and these videos, as we always enjoy hearing from all of you here on Spotlight Hawaii. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Aloha.